This video is a documentary video for MUSH Class A for Mr. Kappa. The Vietnam War is and always will be one of the most remembered conflicts in U.S. history. The Vietnam War started in the early 60s while the U.S. was just coming off two very costly wars. However, the American people wanted to enter the war, even after these two devastating wars. There was much controversy surrounding the United States' involvement in Vietnam. Firstly, Congress gave President Lyndon B. Johnson power to win the war by any means necessary, meaning he could use any force to try and win the war. This was odd, because some people didn't even see a motive to get involved in Vietnam. This is now known as the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, due to the Gulf the United States claimed to be attacked in. Also, Congress never actually declared war on Vietnam. The United States got involved because they were protecting democracy in Vietnam, as they say. The Communist Party stationed in the north of Vietnam wanted to unify the country into one communist party. The South wanted to be their own separate democratic country. The United States joined the war to fight with the South and push the North back, while the Soviet Union and Chinese government backed the North Vietnamese in this war. Originally, the United States was just going to train the South Vietnamese soldiers. However, as the threat seemed more impending, the U.S. decided to send troops to the ground. The United States first started the war with Operation Rolling Thunder. This was a large-scale plane operation to bomb high-profile targets in the north. This attack was not very successful, and the United States had many casualties due to this. This plan was unsuccessful because President Lyndon B. Johnson picked the targets that were to be bombed instead of the generals stationed in Vietnam. The United States also utilized search and destroy tactics. This means they would search out Viet Cong and NVA ground troops, then send in large forces to try and take them out. This was successful in terms of body count. The ratio of American troops that died to North Vietnamese troops was 1 to 12, meaning for every dead American soldier, there were 12 dead Viet Cong. On the surface, this looks extremely good. However, the numbers can be deceiving. The Viet Cong were masters of elusiveness and worked very well using guerrilla tactics. The hit and runs the Viet Cong would utilize were devastating to the U.S. Army. Even with these tactics and home field advantage, the U.S. Army was still extremely superior and should have rolled over the Viet Cong. So why is this war considered at best a draw for the United States? How did the U.S. lose the war? There were many contributing factors that led to the United States' downfall in Vietnam. The biggest reason most historians believe the United States lost the war in Vietnam is the Tet Offensive. Tet is a New Year holiday in Vietnam, and up until 1968, there was a ceasefire for the holiday. Most of the South Vietnamese that were stationed at big outposts went home for the holiday. The North felt like this was a great time for a sneak attack. This was the first major attack pulled off by the North Vietnamese. They attacked major southern outposts in the middle of the night. Some 70,000 troops were amassed by the North for this attack. While this caught the United States and the South off guard, they were still able to recapture all the points and push back the North within a few hours of the attack. So, you might ask, why is this considered a major reason for a United States loss in Vietnam? You can blame the media for that. This war was the first war that was totally covered by the media. Media outlets had cameramen and reporters stationed in Vietnam to keep people updated back home. The media blew the Tet Offensive way out of proportion. Lyndon B. Johnson always promised that the North Vietnamese weren't organized enough to set up an attack. So when they did attack, this troubled the American people. The American people felt lied to by the president, and this did not help gain support for an already unpopular war. Back home, there were angry citizens asking the president when the troops would be brought home. The music of that era also made the people more enraged with their anti-war rhetoric. The Tet Offensive was a massive turning point for the Vietnam War. While the U.S. won the battle decisively, support for the war plummeted. The media claiming this was a huge attack that took the United States off guard and established North Vietnam as a legitimate threat, which was really not the case. This was a psychological loss for the U.S. Army, and we were basically ineffective after that. Another large reason why the U.S. lost support in Vietnam was the My Lai massacre. This is the most brutal civilian killing in the Vietnam War. The U.S. had rounded up some 500 civilians in the village of My Lai in March of 1968. The United States did this because they thought these civilians were either housing or were Viet Cong. This was common among peasants in the South because they were promised a better life by the communist North. They would help the Viet Cong and keep them hidden in exchange for a better life in the future. However, at My Lai, this wasn't the case. And still, the U.S. soldiers brutally murdered all of the civilians at My Lai. High-ranking U.S. officials covered this massacre up for a full year. A soldier finally confessed to the murders at My Lai once the guilt got too much for him. Once this got out to the public, people were outraged. They couldn't believe our troops could have done something so horrendous. 14 U.S. officials were put on trial for the My Lai massacres, but only one was convicted. This made the people back home even more furious because they felt that justice had not been served. If your country is in a war and there is no support from the people, then you will not win that war. This is why My Lai was the killing blow for the U.S. Army. While most historians blame loss of support for the U.S. failure in Vietnam, there are other reasons that contributed. Along with loss of support, there was a very bad strategy to try and beat North Vietnam. Many important outposts in the North were blacklisted from bombing runs by the President during Operation Rolling Thunder. This rang true the second time around as well, when President Reagan tried Operation Rolling Thunder again in the early 70s. Other not-important outposts would be bombed for weeks straight for no reason. This strategy was absolutely horrible. If LBJ listened to his advisors on the ground, Operation Rolling Thunder could have been a success. Another contributing factor was not officially declaring war. Colonel Harry Summers says if this were to happen, people would have rallied behind the U.S. Army, and we would have had all the support we needed to win the war. While there are many contributing factors to the U.S. losing the war in Vietnam, we should never forget the brave men who fought overseas. As embarrassing as this loss was, it was not the soldiers' fault. They fought valiantly to win this war. They stayed in South Vietnam until it was taken over by the North in 1975. This war will forever be remembered as the first and only U.S. loss in a war ever. That legacy will always live on.